Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we finished up The Green Death. What happened on that?
Well, if I recall correctly, the maggots started coming up above the ground. Fortunately, Unit hand grenaded them or bombed them out of existence pretty much, except for the one fly, which was defeated by an overcoat.
Right.
But the people who were catching the Green Death, the virus, turns out that Professor Jones's mushroom sauce cleared that up.
Yeah.
And at the end, not specifically a surprise to us because we thought they had set it up in the planet of the Daleks. Joe falls in love with the professor and they decide that they're going to get married and go off to live for months in the Amazon or something like that.
Yes. And also there was a supercomputer that...
The boss, yeah.
Yeah. Who was made to be perfectly imperfect, which didn't work out. So,
but it was kind of interesting because you normally think of these computers as being completely personality-less, but this one was kind of funny. Played music and made jokes and sort of thing. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So this time around,
an artificial intelligence that wasn't so intelligent.
Yes, exactly. Wonder what acronym that creates. So, this time around, we're on to the Time Warrior.
Time Warrior. This is season 11 now?
Yes.
Wow.
11 seasons in. And this is a 4-parter, so we'll watch the whole thing in this video. But yeah, I'm not really sure where we go from here. Like, I guess just space. You just go do some more space adventures.
The Final Frontier.
Yeah, so not to be confused with Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Nothing compares to that.
Yeah. There's one good moment in that movie. There is. When they're talking about Cybok. This is off topic already, but whatever. It happens. It's when Cybok wants to take away their pain, and Captain Kirk says, "No, I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain." That's one somewhat okay moment.
Okay.
Just because it's like, yeah, it's good. You need your pain. It builds your character and stuff like that. And I've had to reference that way too many times in these reactions, and so yeah, it's the only Star Trek I really ever reference, unfortunately. So
he tasks me, and I will have him. How can you not reference Wrath of Khan?
Well, because that doesn't come up a lot. That doesn't come up on like Better Call Saul or something like
That's
that. True. So yeah. Anywho, the Time Warrior. Back on topic. I'm not really sure what to expect from this one. The Time Warrior. Who knows? It could be the unofficial sequel to the Time Monster, except Kronos was cool at the end of that, and we don't have the Master anymore. Yeah. So
I'm barely reading. Unit investigates when scientists go missing.
Well, if that's not the plot of every Doctor Who episode that involves Unit, so this is the first episode of the season, and like always, that means the full-length reaction is available for free. So if you want to go try that out, just head down in the description or into the pinned comment. That'll take you over to my Patreon page, but remember, this is free. So you can, basically what you got to do is sync up your copy of this episode of Doctor Who to our footage. And we do it because I cannot stress this enough, people. I can't give you a full episode because that is wholesale illegal. And people question me on that. Yeah. But it's not just like Patreon or anything. I can't do that. So it's very easy to find episodes of Doctor Who. We're watching it on BritBox on Amazon. You can use normal BritBox. You can use shadier websites, but you didn't hear that from me. At that point, I wash my hands of your illegality. But it's as easy as ever to just sync up the two pieces of footage. You watch it. You hopefully have a good time, and when you're done with that, we do highly encourage you to come back for the discussion for more random tangents like we just did about Star Trek V. Of course, if you don't want to do that, if you just want to watch the edited reaction, just wait 5-10 seconds, however long we keep rambling, and the edited reaction will start up here. So,
you think it's only going to be 10 seconds of rambling?
I don't know. That depends on what are we going to say next.
You're such an optimist.
Yeah. Well, so that brings up, do you have anything else?
At this moment, no.
Then let's just go ahead and get right into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go. Well, the intro's different.
Oh, and they finally updated his picture.
Yeah.
Now they got a full body and lots of hair.
Whoa, this is crazy, man.
This is the first kaleidoscope, really.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the new logo.
The new logo. I thought they saved that for Tom Baker. All right.
Oh, Robert Holmes. One of our favorites.
We'll drink a toast to Iron Grand Star.
So the War of the Worlds came early. You don't have the most graceful TV horse.
What are you from the stars? Who are you? Where do you come from?
I am a Sontaran officer.
Oh
My
boy.
name is Lynx.
Caesar Saracen.
He's pretty tall for a Sontaran.
I'm guessing the Sontarans come back later.
Yeah.
People vanishing. People? Well, they've lost half a dozen leading scientists and several £1 million worth of ultra-secret equipment.
What are they working on here, anyway?
Space hardware, new alloys, guidance systems, methods of propulsion.
And what action have you taken?
Exactly
so
what the
far?
Sontaran needs.
Well, I had rather a bright idea.
So,
Guns? All right, that's going to have to be 15 or 1600s.
What? Oh,
Claps the ears!
I'll soon master the game.
maybe he's merely invented it.
Seems to be a lot of them about today.
I'm sorry?
Well, I was talking to a young woman just now, also Smith. Oh, there she is. Miss Smith.
Yes, Professor?
Come and meet your namesake. Miss Lavinia Smith, Dr.
Dr. John Smith. How do you do, Miss Smith?
Hello. My Aunt Lavinia is in America on a lecture tour, you see. She had an invitation to visit here. I took her place.
Why?
I thought all this might give me a good story. I'm a journalist, Sarah Jane Smith.
You can make yourself useful. We need somebody around here to make the coffee.
If you think I'm going to spend my time making cups of coffee for you... you'll get-
Professor!
I feel like that's a gift to be able to sleep like that. Boy, this is... I feel like that's more than shoot first.
Very interesting, that.
Professor Rubish, are you in there?
Well, I can't stay here chatting, old boy. Gotta get after Rudish.
How would she get in there without them hearing her?
No telling
Or
where you
seeing...
finish up.
I don't
And what
know.
happened to you on Metabelius 3?
Got there, didn't I?
Yes, eventually, after several detours.
Brigadier, a straight line may be the shortest distance between 2 points, but it is by no means the most interesting. Goodbye, old chap. Well done, old girl. Absolutely on target. For once.
Oof. Alrighty. Alrighty, that's part one. Whew, they look a little rough. I'm not gonna lie. They've looked better. They look a little bit better in the modern era, but
But what, this is 73 or 74?
yeah, 73, I think.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah,
The fact that you can see his eyes move and his tongue.
yeah, that's true. Well, an interesting introduction for Sarah Jane. Yeah, just very interesting, just sort of stumbling onto the TARDIS and then getting captured.
And then, not when she came out, although she said it's still just a police box on the outside, she didn't say anything about it's bigger on the inside. I mean, that's the standard
Yeah,
line.
so...
But again, now I understand she's a journalist. It's as companions go, though. That's not much of a. I mean, she might understand history, of course, like Ian and Barbara did. But I mean, she doesn't even have, one would think, the basic, fighting skills that even Joe had. I mean, after all, Joe had trained at unit, one would think.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that I know she goes on to be an iconic companion here, but I'm
Yeah.
not seeing why they introduced a character with so little to add.
Well, I think at least one thing going for the whole journalist thing is that she asks questions. She's very inquisitive. She'll try to understand what the doctor is saying, which, we had a bit of that with, Liz because she was a scientist. But Jo, we kind of had to teach her how to ask these questions and figure things out. And towards the end, season 9, season 10, she was able to do that. But Sarah Jane is immediately trying to ask, 10,000 questions about what's going on. So, interesting stuff so far.
And again, completely new intro and outro, I guess.
Yeah, which is very interesting because the intro is pretty much stayed the same for Pertwee this entire time since the beginning of season 7. So it's interesting that they suddenly change it to be so different.
The girl's not of your kind, Iron. The hair is finer, the thorax of a different construction.
Oh, Hell Street, have you no girls beyond the stars? No women to do the lowly work?
Ah, I understand. You have a primary and secondary reproductive cycle. It is an inefficient system. You should change it.
What? Who are you?
Retro Cyberman.
Have you come into my castle? What fool?
We have found the flaw. Ugh. I hate the random hairs.
Well, what is it you need to say to me? Didn't I tell you you might not find my face pleasing?
Aye. Never was truer word spoken.
No.
Gotta say, the sets are amazing,
Yeah.
as are the costumes. But again, BBC is best at doing that.
Yeah.
Look, Professor, what's wrong with all these people?
Hypnotized. Can't get a word out of them. Rotten company.
Well, you seem to be all right.
Oh, didn't work with me. Strong-minded, you see.
Yes, and very nearly blind.
Oh, nonsense.
Obviously working some sort of ocular device.
Oh, it's the thing. That's why he can't do it on him.
Who is this doctor? What do you know of him?
Scientists, learned men, they're being taken from the place I come from. And I believe that the doctor is bringing them here and handing them over to Irongron.
Well, okay. Taking a bit of a leap there.
Weapons, my lady.
Oh, what's wrong with you? All it needs is a sort of commando raid. You knock out the sentries, rush into the castle, grab the doctor, and away. Well, you've got soldiers, haven't you?
A handful. A raid. A bold plan.
I'll go, Sir Edward.
Well, I guess she knows military strategies.
Assisted well, Doctor. You have encountered my race before, Doctor.
Unfortunately.
I'll overlook that insult for the moment.
Interesting how well you can read his
What is
face.
your native planet?
Even though
Gallifrey.
only his eyes and mouth move, you can
I am a
see
Time Lord.
his
yes.
face and the reactions of
A
it.
race of great technical achievement.
Good evening.
Good job.
He who strikes Irongron dies.
Yep. Yeah. Hang on, let's see who's playing Lynx.
Alright.
Come on, Lindsay. Well, again, very expressive with his face.
Yeah. Alright. Well, I guess I can kind of understand why Sarah Jane would think the doctor was helping him.
Yeah.
So, but it is just sort of interesting, But it makes sense with seeing the TARDIS and everything. It's like, oh, that's how people are being taken back and stuff like that. So she's smart. She got to a conclusion. It's just a little off the path, A little off the path. But it's a start.
Yeah.
Jo wouldn't have thought of that stuff. So...
Now, I have to say, again, just based on these first 2 episodes, the writing is very good. And whoever directed it obviously is keeping the pace up. There's not a whole lot of silliness, not a lot of padding or anywhere. I mean, every last detail leads into the next one. So it's a good script. The director's doing a good job. And again, BBC sets and costumes. I was just thinking recently, nobody in this part of Oklahoma does historical plays anymore because they don't have the sets and they don't have the costumes for it. Plus, a lot of the actors aren't trained for that, and I really miss doing, Man for All Seasons or any of the Shakespeare histories or anything like that. So, this makes me want to go out and do, King John again.
Well, of course, this is all, in an episode with a potato-headed spaceman.
But he's not a bug-eyed monster.
Yeah.
He's not scary. He's different. He is intelligent. Obviously knows immediately how to deal with Iron Gron and his men.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. That's the thing, is that he doesn't come off as this, scary alien monster. I will control all of you. He does control them all, but he doesn't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, and also the Sontarans, because we kind of got that a bit here, that they're sort of, a very warrior race. They've been fighting this one species for, thousands and thousands of years throughout space, and they've conquered a lot of other species throughout galaxies and stuff. You almost expect them to be very Klingon-like. Yeah. But I like, at least right now, this guy's a lot smarter, and we're not seeing the full force of the Sontaran warrior race. We're just seeing one guy who's kind of down on his luck, and he's trying to figure things out, but he is very smart.
Yeah.
So, even though he's pulling in scientists and other, and these medieval guys, he's figuring things out.
Your reference there to the Klingons, he's actually more like the original Romulans in the original series. Very smart, very Roman Empire, rather than, the barbarians, rather than the Vikings or anybody like that.
Yeah. I don't fully remember the original series Romulans. I remember them from, Next Gen and stuff, but I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched the original series, so... and I could watch it. We could watch it again, but you have to sit through some of the episodes of the salt vampire, and they cut out Spock's brain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, I also like having Dr. Rubish there, and it's just he can't see, so he can't be hypnotized. That's very clever. But he's not useful for too many things because he can't see.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, interesting character.
I still say this is no work for women.
I wouldn't have missed this for anything. Anyway, I'm the only one who knows what the doctor looks like. Come on, this way.
It's interesting how the female haircuts of the early 70s look a lot like the haircuts of the Middle Ages.
Yeah. Oh, we gotta watch this whole Benny Hill chase scene again. Oh no, they've cut it down.
I'm going to say you could put the Benny Hill theme song under that.
Yeah.
He who strikes Iron Gron dies.
Oh, I thought he was gonna just shoot him.
That's the best thing.
Thank you very much, Miss Smith. A most timely rescue.
This isn't a rescue, Doctor. It's a capture. Let's get him out of here.
I mean, to Sarah Jane's credit, she has taken charge. Oh, he's making glasses.
Because every scientist knows how to be an optometrist.
Yeah. Make your exact prescription.
My dear girl, I'm not helping him. Lynx is. I'm trying to stop him.
Lynx.
Yes, perhaps you're lucky enough not to have met him yet. Nasty, brutish, and short just about sums him up.
There was a strange-looking knight with Iron Gron.
Yes, he'd have looked even stranger if he hadn't been wearing space armor. He comes from a planet where the surface gravity is many times that of Earth.
A man from the stars.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know you're telling the truth?
Because I never lie.
Well, that's a lie.
Well, hardly ever.
Meh.
If you mean, am I a native of the planet Terra, the answer is no, I'm not.
Well, what are you then?
Me? I'm a Time Lord.
A Time Lord?
Yeah, that's right. And my people are very keen to stamp out unlicensed time travel. You can look upon them as galactic ticket inspectors, if you like.
Galactic ticket inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'd murder a cup of tea.
Notice he didn't ride up on a horse.
Your weapons do not work, things.
You do not shoot them straight. Watch.
He can't see very well.
Those letters seem kind of short.
Yeah. That's why they're not showing the top of the wall in the shot. Run away! They're not really used to explosions.
There was some sort of superior stink bomb with a few bangs and flashes thrown in for good measure. It's quite harmless, I assure you, but...
Bring me wine, wine, I say! To quench the dust from my throat and the stench from my nostrils!
Oh man, if that got in their beards too.
I will take Sir Edward's castle, or I will see every man of you perish in the attempt! Chicken-hearted knaves!
I smell a
Begone from my
rebellion.
sight!
Yeah. Yeah, shouldn't they be used to bad stenches?
I not see you yours.
Yours is indeed a towering intelligence.
Yours is the superior intellect.
Cross round. Heaven will reward you, my son. Come, brother.
Tis to be hoped the two friars are fleet of foot, or the church will have 2 new martyrs ere long.
The medieval milkman disguise. Sarah's got a new outfit.
Oh, my thanks, good toad face. Good links. More weapons from the stars.
I shall complete
Another
the repairs
rifle.
of the improved fighting robot, if I have time before I leave.
If you wish to leave, then you would do well to obey me.
Do you threaten me?
Master
I leave
Jedi.
when I am ready, and that will be soon.
Even if it does, can't see what you intend.
Don't you want to get back to the 20th century?
Steak and mushrooms, lobster, chocolate truffles, oh dear goodness.
These people are... All right, Commander Lynx, what do you say?
You wish for my answer, Doctor?
I do.
Then here it is.
Do you think that's a yes?
No.
Nah, probably not.
Well, again, Robert Holmes' dialogue is just fantastic. I am reminded of famous British playwright of this time period, Robert Bolt, wrote Man for All Seasons and Vivat Regina. Again, it mixes that kind of syntax of the time period with not completely modern words, but it's things that it sounds period, but modern audiences can understand it, and it's very good. I'm very pleased with his script.
Yeah. It is very interesting just how quickly it's now switched and Sarah trusts the Doctor and everything. I do like that. But yeah, I will say at the very least, you know, when you were talking about like, well, what does Sarah, you know, bring to the table and stuff, which I know we'll get the comments that that's just not the mindset to have when it comes to companions. But at the very least, I feel like she's taking charge more than most companions do.
Yeah, she's adapted very, very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So
I mean, even more so than Ian and Barbara did, because it took them 2 or 3, not just episodes, but 2 or 3 serials to finally get into the realization that this was their life and they were going to have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's just how quick it is. And I almost wonder though, because you know normally when we've taken on a new companion, we always have another companion that you know sort of helps them out and stuff, and that always has been the case through the first and second Doctors. But with the third Doctor, it's just, well, we have Liz, now we have Jo, now we have Sarah Jane. So I'm wondering if now because we're on Sarah Jane, this is our third companion for the third Doctor, that it's like, well, we could either, write it like we always write it, or let's just get to what everyone wants, which is the companion and the Doctor working together and working well together.
Now, do you know when Harry comes on?
I don't know, but I would imagine it might be at some point with the 12th Doctor. So probably sometime next season. Not 12th. Did I say 12th? I meant 4th.
All right.
That's because I was thinking of season 12.
Okay.
That's why.
All right. So he won't be there until Tom Baker.
Yes.
Okay.
I would guess.
Okay.
I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, but yeah.
I think it would be better if you witnessed first the destruction of your female companion.
Ooh. Good shot.
Well done, Rubish. If we can secure our friend here, we can get on with the job of restoring his wretched victims.
Will this help?
Rubish, you're invaluable, my dear chap.
Now, talk about an interesting companion.
Yeah, I did think that, if Rubish came along too.
I'd always assumed that creatures from a high-density planet would have developed a pressure-balanced physiology. For example, if you take certain types of seaweed...
Oh, no, not seaweed.
Oh, no.
Not sentient seaweed.
No.
Certainly a better fight than the one in the last castle.
No.
Yeah. Great sport, this blood axe. The sword is too quick and clean a death for you. Well, since you are a wizard, then by wizardry shall you die.
See, that was the Master's problem.
Me old girl, it's only pikemen we're feeding, not horses. Hey, what's that pot? If you burn or I'm going to stew, you'll have your liver cut out.
But if you watch it, it will never boil.
Him and his chamber.
Double, toil and trouble.
Look at that great spider!
Oh, that worked.
See, there's a machine here that'll send you home again. Unfortunately, I don't know how to work it, and the chap who does has vanished. But I expect he'll pop up, as he usually does. But the important thing is, until then, you must carry on working as if you were still hypnotized. Can I ask? Oh, Morrison, don't start asking a lot of awkward questions. I assure you I don't know the answers any more than you do.
Rubish actually looks a little bit like a young Benny Hill.
No.
These knaves of mine lack practice with their star weapons. A living target will give them a chance to better their aim before tomorrow's battle.
The world's first firing squad.
You!
Yes, drop the old chandelier on everybody.
No.
Doctor!
Oh no, swing from it. Good job. Good job. Now, what is that for? Ah, a shield.
Vibranium, no doubt.
No.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Doctor!
This is the greatest opponent he's ever had.
Why sorcery would you don't face? Well, Iron magic is too strong for you.
Oh, poor guy. Ooh! Right in the blowhole. He might be dead.
Something's gone wrong.
Now, that'll be interesting model work to see this castle blow up.
Nah. That was just a stock explosion.
Yeah, it looked like it was from a quarry. But, again, 50 years ago, we wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Now, he said that Iron Grun and his men were destroyed, so were they still in the castle then?
Well, I don't. I think his men got out, okay. but Iron Grun definitely died there.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So, Alrighty. That's the end of the first episode.
Well, again, I don't know if I will catch flack for this, but I think that is the best written episode we've seen probably since the War Games.
Nah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, a nice script, no ostensible padding to it. I mean, keeping it in 4 episodes was really good. Very believable characters. I mean, Iron Gron is pretty much what the people from the Middle Ages were like.
Yeah.
Interesting villain, because, he's not, tentacles and, burbling pizza sores and things like. I mean, it was. I like the Sontaran. Whoever the actor was very good at playing him.
Yeah.
And makes me look forward to seeing them again.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how many times they come back in classic Doctor Who, but they pop up every now and again in modern Doctor Who. They're a lot shorter than that, though. That was the thing. Was I was looking at this guy, I was like, he seems to be about as tall as Iron Gron and the rest of them.
Yeah.
It's just that he's shorter than the Doctor, but everyone's shorter than John Pertwee. So yeah. But even like the voice is pretty consistent too. Like they sort of match that voice with the newer actors. Yeah. So,
and I have to say, Sarah Jane is growing on me.
Yeah, definitely. Just sort of that. Just the take charge. She's like, you wouldn't expect, like, when you were like, well, what does she offer and stuff like that. It's like, honestly, it's just how much she will do. It's not much what does she bring. It's that she will do a lot of these things.
The can-do attitude.
Yeah, definitely. Which I feel like even with Joe, as much as I liked Joe, we had to work up with that with Joe. So, alrighty. And we talked about the Sontarans and sort of comparing them to the Klingons and the Romulans. I will say, like, if Commander Lynx here is sort of a correct sort of portrayal of a Klingon, I would say that Iron Gron is the more stereotypical Klingon that you would occasionally get in some episodes, which happens, and it's not a bad thing in those episodes. But it's when you get the more, I'm trying to think. There was an episode of Next Gen where there was like Klingon terrorists, basically, where they were like, we want to steal the Enterprise and go blow things up. Like, they didn't even have a goal.
Yeah.
They just wanted to blow things up, and they were tempting Worf and stuff like that. And that's the sort of, stereotypical Klingon image. And then you get more smarter villains like whoever Christopher Lloyd played in the third movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I kind of see that between Iron Gron and Commander Lynx.
Yeah.
So definitely a good villain.
Yeah. And again, the writing, Iron Gron always referring to the Sontaran as, Toad or Toadface, or that was all just, I mean, that's very typical of the kind of things that medieval people would have done.
Yeah. I was gonna say something else. I can't. Because this episode is called The Time Warrior, and I guess so. Is it that the Sontarans have time travel?
No. That's the thing. They never really explained that. I assumed that he landed where he landed because that's when the war was going on. But he had a way, not specifically to travel himself, but to... I'm assuming that this castle's in the same place or roughly close to where the research facility is today. And he's able simply to bring some people back, kind of like a time tunnel thing. I mean, it's only limited to that specific spot. That was the impression that I got, because I don't think he had the ability to travel through time himself.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like this war. I don't remember what the other species was called.
The Rutan, I think.
Yeah, Rutans. I think it does just take place in this century, but you're right. It's some sort of technology. Maybe they're right on the verge of time travel. Because there are future episodes, I think, where the Sontarans gain time travel and stuff. There was actually an episode in the most recent season where they go back. I can't remember what war it was, but instead of Russia, it was just Sontarans. So they basically wiped out Russia and took their place and stuff. It was a whole thing. It was complicated, but it was interesting. They actually had a Sontaran on a horse. Unlike this episode. So,
yeah. I thought I made me wonder if that actor couldn't ride a horse, or if because of the costume and everything, it would have been difficult for him to get on and off of one.
I think he couldn't see. Yeah. Because when it's like, oh, hand me a rifle, and you just see the rifle, and he's like, got it. And then he tries to shoot. So I don't think he could see through the helmet. So yeah. But I guess it must just be that they're on the verge of time travel. Because the Doctor talks about, well, the Time Lords, they don't like unauthorized, unlicensed time travel, which they have no severe issues with, like, the Daleks. The Daleks are kind of the only other ones we see with time travel, but the Time Lords aren't really doing anything about that. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess it is sort of like that they're like, well, he's got this time tunnel and stuff, and the Time Lords, they wouldn't like that. Not that they're really in this, it's just the Doctor saying, well, that's what my people would do. Yeah. Giving out galactic time tickets. So yeah, I guess that's it. Unless we miss, like, a line that he can actually time travel, but I don't think that's the case.
No.
So, but let's see. But yeah, we had the scientists being taken from UNIT, which we didn't really spend, like, any time with UNIT. Like, I was kind of thinking, like, well, we'll be here a little bit, and then maybe we'll go back. But it was pretty immediate when they went back in time.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Well, and again, we have the introduction of Sarah Jane, a journalist specifically, which I will admit, I always kind of have to keep reminding myself she's a journalist, like, and that's terrible because I've watched an entire show where she's the main character and I still have to remember that she's a journalist. Yeah. So it doesn't come up. I mean, it comes up often enough, but I really have to think about it. But it's interesting because, yeah, I wouldn't have thought that it's like, well, she's a journalist, so she's asking questions, and she's asking all the right questions, too, which is interesting. And also just the fact that, it's, I guess it's just sort of that, Lois Lane, do anything to, get your story and, throw yourself into this horrible, dangerous situation. Luckily, she has her Superman to help her out. Although, again, sort of like Lois Lane, she also can fend for herself a little bit, which is good.
Yeah, I was thinking that perhaps the main difference between Sarah Jane and Jo is Jo was, I guess, what you would call a proto-feminist. She certainly had certain feminist ideas, but was still kind of old-fashioned. But Sarah Jane seems to be, when she was talking to the scullery maids and everybody there, saying, you don't have to do this. You can get out and do things on your own. Perhaps that will introduce a new strain of feminism into the series here.
Yeah, I was trying to think if we've kind of had that before with a companion. And now I'm, like, kind of running through every female companion we've had.
Barbara would have been the only one.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think, like, Polly or... well, because, see, some of the others, it's like, well, they're from the future, so they're not really thinking about some of that stuff because they've already got it figured out in their times.
Again, Polly would be more like Jo in that in the 60s, that's when feminism was just getting started.
Yeah.
So having Polly being, I don't want to say she was a go-go girl or anything like that, but again, she would have been on the very beginnings of it. So that didn't really become a thing until the 70s, which is why I think it manifests itself more in Sarah Jane than it would in Polly.
Yeah.
But again, now Barbara, woman who had been a teacher, woman who had a career, woman who didn't need Ian or anybody else to get along.
Yeah.
That's, again, one of the reasons why I still think she is one of the most perfect of the companions.
Yeah. And just the fact that, if there was ever a fight, you go to her, specifically. It's 3 years later, and we're still making that joke. So, let's see. Well, we had the Iron Knight, the robot, which was interesting. I thought there would be a bit more with that.
Yeah.
Because especially, when it's like, oh, yes, he's this invincible knight that cannot be killed or anything. It's like, oh, okay, so that's a great thing for Iron to have. But then I thought, well, yes, and then when Lynx betrays you, then you can't stop his army, basically. But they really only had the one.
Yeah.
So, but it was still interesting.
Yeah, I wondered a moment why his belt were so low. I realized that, yes, that was a kind of a fashion during that time period. But then I realized after they lopped his head off that they had to do that to cover up the fact that the guy inside's waist would have been a giveaway. So they had to lower it down to make it look a little bit more like he was not a human being inside it.
Right. So basically they have honestly just a normal guy in there, but they extend the torso up to get to his head. Yeah. And then they must have...
Also very interesting, because the Sontaran, in order to get his face where it was, and yet have the rest of his body, he had to have been very far forward in that costume, and probably had, anywhere from 9 to 12 inches of padding and costume on his back and on top of and back of his head to make him look the way he looked. Yeah. Because to get his face that far forward, they had to build out his back. And I just thought that, again, fascinating costume. And again, great character, and so, hats off to Robert Holmes. Again, one of his better scripts.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's interesting that the new weapons for Iron Grown's men, they're just rifles, and they're not really good with them either. I mean, obviously, they're not that great. I'd be curious. You would think that Hal might be able to do that because he's an archer, but I mean, I suppose, how well does archery might translate well. He could probably be a decent shot. At least better than Iron Grown's men.
But here's the thing. Even if any of those weapons survive the destruction of the castle, since they don't know how to manufacture them themselves, and they certainly wouldn't figure out how to... I mean, even if the rifles survived, they wouldn't know how to make the ammunition or the gunpowder. Yeah. So that's a kind of a loose end. But again, as a teacher, that's something that I talk about in all my history classes, is that literally every Native American uprising against the Europeans was doomed from the very beginning, because they never did on their own figure out how to make their own weapons, didn't know how to manufacture the guns, certainly never made gunpowder or anything like that. So, for example, if you get weapons from the French to fight against the Spanish or the British, that's one thing. But when your relationship with the French goes sour after the French and Indian War, the natives are back to, bows and arrows and clubs, and they weren't able to sustain any uprising because they ran out of resources.
Yeah. And that is one of those things, like, even if people 5-10 years later did see those rifles, yeah, you're right, they don't know they probably wouldn't even know that you put in gunpowder and stuff like that, and you have to have a specific bullet. They just look at it as like, well, this is just a weird stick with some metal on it, basically. And that does kind of remind me, sort of loosely reminds me of, I think it's like, there's a joke from like Pompeii or something that was found, like an old bar joke from Pompeii. And I can't remember what the joke was, because if you actually read the joke, there's no joke. Like, there's no punchline or anything. It's like, well, this had to have made sense thousands of years ago, but it doesn't now. Yeah. And so you kind of think like, well, what do we have, now in our society that, 5,000 years from now, they'll look back and like, what was this? They'll look back at internet memes and be like, they found this funny. We're not sure why. There's no joke here. So, but even, yeah, so that loosely reminded me of that with the rifle. They'll just look at it as like, well, this is just a weird stick. Let's just burn it for the fire, So, like, maybe they might look at the metal and be like, oh, well, that's an interesting use of metal. Yeah. This sort of metal tube, basically, but they're not going to know what to do with that.
I noticed that last iteration of the rifle is very similar to the one that we have. Ours is from early 1800s. So I think those were probably more 1700s. They didn't, going back to 1600s, they would have been, the big, like, arquebus type things or blunderbuss. Yeah. But those look more like the late 1700s muskets.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting when the doctor says, if you give them rifles now, if you teach them how to make the rifles now, they'll have nuclear weapons by the 17th century, which is interesting. That kind of reminds me of the Eternals movie, which nobody should be reminded about. But when it cuts to the tech guy finally, and he's a Hiroshima, and he's like, oh, he helped them with their technology, so they created the nuclear bomb, and he's devastated about this. And it's like, well, A, great job on that. B, why, like, how much did you help them on that? Like, eventually, I feel like they would have gotten there, whether or not it takes place in the 1900s or not, So it kind of reminds you of that. It's like now, but we bring that back to the 17th century, which also, another thing, I'm just being reminded of everything today, also reminds me a bit of the Time Meddler.
Yeah, I was going to say the meddling monk.
Yeah, with whatever his plan was, it was like to help the one person.
Well, yeah, he was trying to see what would happen if he could change history so that, I guess he was trying to see if the Saxons won and beat the Normans, how British history would have changed, if I recall correctly. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm reminded of, and I will get off this train of being reminded of things, I can't remember what episode it was, but it was a Legends of Tomorrow episode where I think it was the first one with Bebo and the Vikings, and there was something about it. I don't remember why, but they bring up the map and Gideon's like, well, the Vikings conquer all of North America, or as they now call it, New Valhalla. And it shows like the Statue of Liberty, but with a Viking helmet on it. And it's like just the slight change to history that blows up everything, basically. But I can't remember why that happened. So
yeah, I don't remember that, but
yeah. Anywho, I'm done being reminded of things.
Good.
So
what else you got there?
Well, we also had the whole thing of Sarah thinking the Doctor was working for Irongorn, which is interesting. Which, yeah, it's like, we say, well, she adapted pretty quickly to this whole time situation. Honestly, it's not too far off to make that connection for the Doctor doing something bad, because, like, well, he's this mysterious guy who was at the research facility, and then, he's got this police box that took me back in time. Yeah, journalists may be connecting the dots, not connecting them correctly, but you can see where she got that conclusion. So that was interesting. And then again, just the Sarah taking charge of Sir Edward's people and stuff, and then capturing the Doctor like that. That was very interesting. I like that. So let's see. And then we had Professor Rubish, who couldn't be hypnotized because he couldn't see, and yet he honestly would be an interesting other companion. Yeah. So, especially because it's like, when we see some of these guys and it's like, well, they're scientists and stuff, and it's like, well, would that actually work with the Doctor? Because, like, yes, they would be inquisitive and they could help with some science things, but you almost think, like, well, the Doctor would hate having another, smart mind, honestly. Yeah. Like, he likes having the companion because he shows off to the companion. But I thought Rubish worked.
Yeah, because he wasn't that overconfident scientist that we always see in these kinds of things. This was a guy who, had quite a, big humanitarian streak in him, and was, again, very inventive, figured out how he could see by, making his own little lens there.
Yeah.
And again, I could see how he would be very helpful to the Doctor without getting in his way or, stealing his thunder.
Right, yeah, because it would sort of be like that, where it's like he would understand some of the science that the Doctor is saying, but he would be impressed like a normal companion. Yeah. So yeah, I imagine Rubish probably isn't going to come back anytime soon, if at all. But he would have made an interesting companion with Sarah Jane. Let's see. We had the stink bombs, which was funny. I did like that because I kind of thought like, oh, maybe it'll knock them out or something like that. It's like, nope, they just reek to high heaven.
Now, did he say it was sulfur? Because they were burning yellow, and that tends to be sulfur.
Yeah.
And yeah, sulfur smells like rotting eggs.
Yeah, so... and then it is kind of funny. It's like, I mean, Lynx was saying, like, well, you just ran because it smelled and stuff like that. It's like, well... It was exploding. How many explosions do these warriors have to deal with?
Yeah.
Probably none.
Yeah.
So yeah, things are blowing up, which they don't know about explosions, and it stinks. So, Although I imagine especially in Irongron's castle, it probably reeks in there.
Yes, but this is an entirely different kind of stink.
Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely the whole thing. They're used to their normal stink.
That's true.
Like he said, there was rotting meat, and even the wine had gone sour, and of course you got the fact that they don't bathe and all that sort. But introduce burning sulfur into that, and that would be an entirely new kind of stink.
Yeah, it's like the Febreze commercials. So. That actually probably would have worked just as well if you just bombed them with Febreze. That would be too much for their senses. Yeah. So, we had the world's first firing squad, which was also the world's least effective firing squad.
Now, I did have one problem with that, and it's again, I won't bring it up as a problem with the episode, but those were single shot. They were not breech loading. Those were all muzzle loaders. So you notice they were firing rather quickly, and instead that should have taken them. I mean, even an expert at a muzzle loader would have taken a minute and a half to get that done. Yeah. So having them fire so rapidly seemed a little out of character. But again, the average person in the early 70s wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, and we could give them credit. Lynx has figured out how to make semi-automatic muskets. To his credit, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
but we never did see any of them reload.
Yeah.
And they didn't seem to have any kind of magazine, so they couldn't have been automatic firing, just because it had a clip or anything in it. So.
Well, it's in the thing.
The stock?
No, at the back behind. Is that the stock?
That's the stock. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hidden in the stock.
Uh-huh.
He found it because normally that's just there. It's not really doing anything. So you can tell I know a lot about guns. So it's there. It doesn't do anything. So. But let's see. And the last thing I wrote down was Lynx taking off after being shot through the probic vent at the back of his neck. He's got to be dead, I think. Like
one would think. Well. Not only was he there, but when his spaceship blew up, that would have killed him too. So
yeah, so because I actually think even in the most recent seasons of Doctor Who, when the Sontarans show up, they're still saying, "Oh, we will get revenge for you killing Commander Lynx," and it's like they keep bringing that up every so often.
Like
so
500 years ago, dudes.
Yeah,
talk about carrying a grudge.
Yeah, well, and for the Doctor, it's like 3,000 years later. So, I also like that when he says, well, I'm not really a young man anymore, once you get over 200. So, which I am curious again how old, and this is a terrible question to try to answer, but how old the Doctor is right now. Because, wasn't it one episode he said that he was like thousands of years old or something like that?
May have been.
And I think the second Doctor said he was like 450 or something. Yeah. I don't know. He probably lies about his age all the time. I have always been curious, though, if the TARDIS keeps track of his age. I would imagine she does. She kind of, does everything else for him. So, and I did like that moment where it's like, finally took me to the right place. So, yeah. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I got. You got anything else?
I got nothing else. I hope the new season is as good as this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that is pretty much it. Next time around, next time is Invasion of the Dinosaurs.
Okay.
Jurassic
World.
Yeah, I hope that it's in the modern day with UNIT, so the Brigadier has to deal with dinosaurs, because that just sounds funny.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's another 6-parter. So, and I think someone said that one of the episodes might actually be in black and white, because that's all they have. So, I don't know. We'll have to see when we get there. But yeah, that is basically it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dan from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another Doctor Who related playlist if you want to go check that out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.